So the problem is the cost of work for families. So the problem is how to reduce for families the cost of regularly assuming these workers to help them to be really regularized.
What do you mean the cost? Do you mean the
cost? Because they have to pay not only the salary, but you have to pay the salary and then to pay the contribution and a lot of taxes. The fiscal gap between the salary received by the employees and what it is paid by family is high. So it is mainly a problem of our fiscal situation and the cost of workers for families, not mainly related to the fact that these people are immigrants.
I see. And so many families would prefer to hire these workers informally in order to avoid paying social security contributions, taxes, and so on. Why has Italy, a country deeply reliant on foreign care workers, struggled to formalize their status or integrate their families? And how do political agendas shape the visibility or invisibility of migrant women in national debates? In this interview, I speak with Elena Bonetti, former Minister for the Family in the Conte and Draghi governments, and now Deputy Leader of the Azione Popolare Europeisti Riformatori Renew Europe group in Parliament. With a background in mathematics and a trajectory in civic and academic life before politics, Bonetti offers a rare vantage point on how migration intersects with family policy through institutional constraints, bureaucratic incentives, and political trade-offs. Together, we explore several fault lines in Italian migration governance, whether policy has prioritized labor market needs over family unity, while migrant women dominate the domestic care sector yet remain legally marginal, and what past regularization programs reveal about state capacity and policy intent. Bonetti draws on her cabinet experience to dissect how decisions are made and avoided at the highest level. So, Mrs. Bonetti, thank you very much for being with me today.
Thank you. It is really a pleasure to discuss with you because I think that the subject you are dealing and investigating is one of the most urgent and strategic issue, not only for Italy, but for Europe and in general for the international framework, in particular considering the effects of this kind of phenomenon in demographic transition and the relation with the other big transition like as a climate transition and so on, and the effects that this transition will have in our society. So it is really a pleasure to participate to this research also for my not only background, but my role as a researcher in mathematical analysis, not in social policies, but my experience now is also to related to legislative activities. And in recent month, I have the role of the president of the first commission in the Italian Parliament, investigating on social and economic effects of demographic transition, and immigration is one of the main issues that is on the table of our discussion.
Very, very interesting. And how did you encounter this issue of immigration in your career? When was the first time it became something really important for you?
But in my political career or before,
Both.
Let me say that I strongly realized that immigration was something already present in our Italian society when I was a young professor of mathematical analysis. because in my career I met many students with family name clearly related not to Italian families but from foreign origins, with the accent and the cultural and the education that was clearly Italian. So this was for the first time my meeting with the second generation of immigrants families in Italy. They were students in the Faculty of Engineering, and it was something really normal and positive in my point of view as a professor of mathematics. Then in my life as I am a scout. I was in the scouting Scout World Association. We organize a lot of events and debate, and in that community, the idea that we should implement laws concerning particular not only regularization of immigrants, but the possibility to obtain citizenship for young people living in Italy, studying in Italy, was for the other young people something which for them natural and just. So, but now Italy is this is already is still an open problem for our society. And then when I was a minister of equal opportunities and family, I had a lot of occasion, considering the first point, the first issue is to the fight against discrimination in Italy. There is an agency, in the presidence of the Council of Ministers, UNAR, which is our agencies, our body against discrimination. And this is one point. The second point is that when I implemented policies for families and children, I had to consider that there are a lot of children and families who are not Italian, in the sense that they have not the citizenship, formalized citizenship in our country, but they live in our community, in our towns, they work, they go to school. And so the measure I introduced, I wanted to be, that this measure could be available also for these families. So that there was something to pay attention to in writing laws and so on, considering this particular fact. Also, considering the fact that Italy now is in a dramatic, I use this adjective with a clear intention. So this and my personal experience can also show the keywords related to the phenomenon of immigration. The first, in particular in our country, the first one is how to avoid and fight against discrimination of immigration, and how we can ensure and promote equal opportunities for people living in Italy, even if they have not our citizenship. The second point is how we can help and implement integration and inclusion in our community, and how immigration of families can also help Italy to counteract the phenomenon of the decreasing of birth and the problem of demography of our country, in particular related to the education, skills, and then the inclusion in the labor market. And the third point, which policies we have to implement to foster this phenomenon, to fight against irregular immigration, but at the same time to build a more just, inclusive, but also sustainable society for Italy.
So you encountered first and the issue of immigration in the academic framework when you were a teacher, and you noticed at some point the increasing diversity in terms of national and cultural origins among your students, but you really started to work on this issue, if I may say, when you enter into politics, and this became something on the agenda that you had to address. So in this political context, what was your impression about the situation of Italian policy regarding migrants? Did you have the feeling more specifically that policies favored labor-based migration or family-based migration? Because it's an issue in Italy. Family is very important.
Okay. Our legislation now is mainly concerned with labor migration. The main tool to plan immigration is the so-called Decreto Flussi. That is a law that in each year the government states the number of migrants that can be regularized in Italy. The problem is that the Italian law governing immigration is, I think, not efficient, not useful, because it is a law assuming that you can ask for a migrant and ask for that this migrant could come in Italy before having the opportunity to meet him, to know him. So this law is something which, in some sense, assume that the irregular coming of migrants is the main tool to arrive in Italy, and then you can ask for regularization. This is not efficient, and indeed we have a problem with a lot of irregular migrants and citizens here in Italy. Why Italian policies and politicians didn't change this law? This is the main question. I have been in two governments and we had not the opportunity to change this law. The main laws is the so-called law Bossi-Fini. In the public debate, migration is always related to phenomena as security, insecurity, crimes, and something which is related to social disease. And the fear of migrants is one of the main and more powerful tool used by ideological and populistic approach to policy. On the other hand, I have to say that in particular concerning now companies and the labor markets, civil society ask for more migrants, more qualified migrants, more efficient policies with less bureaucratic and approach and so on. The problem is that you have to make these two, let me say, requirements more coherent and integrated. So this is the crucial point. Now companies and the labor market ask for more migrants in the labor force, but at the same time, from the point of view of politicians, in particular of some parts of politicians, we are saying that we are, not we, but they are saying that more migrants mean means more crimes and not more difficult opportunities to have secure towns and so on. These 2 points are in some sense together. I think that I believe really that the fact that our perspective is not sufficiently focused on family migrations is I think that now we should also reorganize our legislation considering not only the labor approach but also family approach, because in this way we should better let me say better response but also organize local policies helping integration and so avoiding the possible problem of not integrated people and people who are not integrated in our community are alone, are more fragile, but at the same time they could be part of illegal activities and so on, because they are not included in good relation with the other part of the community and society.
Yeah, just to clarify the situation of the Italian legislation here. So you say that there is strong fear among the public about immigrants, and this is primarily referring to young men, generally isolated young men. I mean, they can be in networks, but they have not come with families generally, and some of them have come irregularly as well. And on the other hand, you mentioned the pressures of employers. So when employers pressures the authorities nowadays, it's not for the authorities to go to recruit workers in third countries. It's because they would like the authorities to give proper documentation and work permits to enough people so that they can fill their manpower needs. But you say at the beginning that the state of the legislation is still very much influenced by the Bossi-Fini law.
Yes,
there I am not sure to have fully understood what it is, because you say this law assumes that migrants have come irregularly. Could you just clarify what this law say? What does this law say, and why is it still influential?
Okay, in an easy manner, this law assumes that in Italy you state that the government states that, for instance, this year we need. I do not remember the last number. 500,000 of migrants or 100. You say that this year you have a fixed number of place for migrants. Then after this law, this Decreto, this decree, there is, and this is one organizing problem, but one click day in which, for instance, a family, a company asks needs to have 2, 3, 4 employers. So you have to introduce the name of the employer, the migrating employer, in this platform, okay, asking for the regularization. Then you have the yes or no from the minister saying that you can employ this person, and so he can come in Italy and to be regular. This is clearly a virtual process, because in the real life you meet the migrant works for you, in some black way, then there is the day in which you can write his name, and after the approval of the ministry, you can this migrant obtain citizen the regularization. This is not an efficient way. So the problem is how to say that people could arrive in Italy and then to be regularized if they have a work. Okay.
So
and then they can ask, have also make the link with the family and so on, and call for all the family coming in Italy and so on.
So if I well understood, the Bossi-Fini legislation tries very much to subordinate immigration to employment.
Work. Yes.
So that it's a way also, I suppose, to ensure
to employment or the fact that you ask for this person to come in Italy.
Yeah,
is mainly the main.
Yeah, so it's a way for them also to ensure that these are integrated people because they have a job, and so they don't want to have immigrants coming without clear employment. But what you point to is that this is something unrealistic, because in practice, what employers want is first to know the person, and so they will go first to someone that is around nearby, and then make the paperwork if needed for this person to be regularized.
Exactly, but not only to let me say this does not consider the fact of refugees. This is another point. When people obtains the state of refugee in Italy, this is another point. But it is not only to know the person, but also to train. That is, our companies need people with specific skills and competencies, and there are a lot of positive experience of companies forming the future future workers who are migrants coming in Italy, refugees, and they form them, and then they hire them when they have a sufficient background of skills.
I see. And now also I understand better the other point you were making, that employers nowadays in Italy ask for immigration. That is, they do that when they fulfill this process we were talking about. That is when they have found someone, they want this person to be regularized. And so the number of these demands seems to be increasing recently.
Yeah.
So that's the mechanic of it. Okay. So interesting. Let's move now towards more what is your core specialty, which is families. And let me ask you first, how do you see the situation of immigrant families in Italy today? It's the same question. That is, what is the situation? We have discussed about the situation of Italian immigration policy in general. What is, according to you, the situation of immigrant families in Italy, especially women and children? Of course, there is a big diversity, I suppose, but let's try to take a comprehensive view.
Yes. Yes, it is really a complex matter, but let me say that the first point is that these kind of families are in general in the lowest state of economic situation of our society, due to the fact that they have just one parent working, for instance, the father, because they have not many families relations. So the fact that a woman who has children have the opportunity to go to work means that there are sufficient caring services for children, and this is not the case in many parts of Italy, and they have not sufficient help in the network of friends or community and so on. So just one salary now in Italy means more or less poverty. And even more if this salary is not sufficient high. And this is the case of the role of the work assumed by migrants. This is one point. The second point is that often we see that there are many problems concerning integration, and the first way to integrate a family is the fact that this family, people, men and women, must speak Italian. And the problem of the language is one of the main problems we have, in particular in some of the culture of migrants, where women are assumed that they have to stay at home and not to have many relations with other people. This is a big problem. There are many cases in which the translation between the mother and the teacher is made by the son or the daughter, by children. So this change also the role of authority in families. This is an important point that we have to consider. I think that we have not sufficient policies to integrate women in our community and to help women, migrant women, to enter the labor market. In Italy, there is a general problem concerning the work of the female part of the labor force, but in particular concerning migrant women. In our school, there are many schools where there are more foreign origin children that Italian children, in particular in some part of, not in the town, but or in some part of the towns, in small villages and so on. And we should implement the number of teachers dedicated to integrate these children concerning language, but also relation with the families in society. This is another crucial point. There is a very important and big work done by, let me say, association, civil society, because there are a lot of very positive experience coming from civil society, not only Catholic, but a big part of Catholic, for instance, Caritas or other big other association, voluntaries experience, and so on. Another important point is related to the possibility to law giving citizenship. I now in this day is coming back the debate concerning the so-called Ius Scholae or Ius Italiae. That means to allow children to obtain Italian citizenship before they become 18, if they follow and they end with the positive results a cycle of our school for education. And this is important to reinforce the integration of these children because they live in Italy, they speak in Italian, they feel themselves part of our classroom and so on, but they have not the same rights of their friends. And this is from the point of view of a psychological view of these children looking at Italy as their country. They feel themselves a sort of foreign people in their house. And this is a problem, also considering the opportunity to form them, and then to expect that their education could be used to implement a development of the whole Italian society. And we go back to the fact that we need migrants to implement the number and the quality of workers, because otherwise our economic system is not sustainable if we look at the number of births in Italy and the proportion, the asymmetric proportion between elder people and younger.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So we are zooming in on those migrants from lower income countries. We're not talking, for instance, about European migrants in Italy. And so the challenges that these families face, as you have just said, is I think you mentioned three main points. One is the access to daycare for children in order to be able to have a two salary family. The second point you mentioned is language, and it's related to the first. Some family members do not speak Italian. And the third point you mentioned is access for children to Italian citizenship. So I understand these are challenges that Italian families may face. In some cases, migrants decide to send just the worker abroad, and the family, for the reasons you mentioned, stay in their home country. And by the way, the Italians themselves were doing that quite a lot in the past decades. So this would help solve a number of problems that you have mentioned. And it would generally be the man who would emigrate and send remittances to the family. But now, in the case of families that are migrating, we have this kind of challenges. I was wondering, does Italian legislation provide some benefits to families when they arrive in Italy, or they
specifically?
They must deal with these challenges?
They, in general, not specifically. There are some help, for instance, organized course for Italian language, but they are this kind of opportunities come from civil society or the single situation. But on the other hand, I have to say that families who live in a regular way in Italy, they have access to some measure helping all the families. For instance, the measure I introduced for children, the so-called assegno unico universale, that is a monthly allowance for families with children.
Sorry, could you just repeat that? What the name of this program?
Assegno unico universale.
Assegno unico universale.
It is an allowance for families with children, monthly erogated by the state, and the amount of this allowance.
It's a family benefit.
Yes, it's a family benefit, and it goes to all families who live in Italy in a regular way. That means that you have access to this measure if you have stayed in your life in Italy at least for 2 years, but not necessarily in a continuity manner. So you can say 1 year and then you go and then you come and say another 1 year without any requirements. Or on the other hand, if you stay here in Italy with a contract for work, for a job, for of at least 6 months. So for foreign families living in Italy, if they stay in Italy, or if they have a job in Italy at least for 6 months, you have the access to this kind of measure. And this measure is the same for Italian families and migrants family. In general, for migrant families who have a lower salary economic situation, the amount of this allowance is higher. And I know that this kind of measure had a very important economic effect for this kind of families. We have some data related to this.
Okay, so it's a digressive allowance that declines as the income of the family goes up.
Yeah.
What is the level, if you have it in mind? If you don't remember the exact number, it's okay. But for at the lowest, for the lowest income family, what is the maximum amount of the
no, I remember now. You have because now I think that it is more or less 200 for one child, 400 for two child,
per year or per month?
700. No, for each month.
Each month. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it's significant, huh?
No, yes, it's significant. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
More or less. So if you have a family with 3 children, you have more or less 800 euro each month. 700, I think now, because there is due to the inflation a change of the amount, but for it is the lowest level, the highest level of the amounts due to the lowest level of the family.
Okay, and so about the employment, let's zoom in a little bit on women. My understanding is that many women work in domestic care. I speak again for the lowest income migrant groups here. Huh? My understanding is that many of them work in domestic care. Do you confirm this is the pattern? And
I do not know if it is the most, but there are many women working in domestic care, and domestic work was one of the reasons for women without family to come in Italy in the past year to care elder people in particular. The so-called badanti in Italy.
Okay, so you don't have necessarily a breakdown of the proportion of women that work in that field, but you know that it's significant, like me. And so many women came to take care of elderly people who stayed at home, perform also some domestic work like cleaning, I suppose. And I have also, it's my understanding that many of these workers are work irregularly. That is,
it's true.
Do you confirm this as well?
Yeah, it is true, and this is one of the main problem. We have some report concerning that it is assumed that we are expecting in the next year 1 million of workers needed by family for to care elder people. So this is a crucial point. But let me say that the problem is mainly not related to the situation of these, in particular these women and workers, considering their situation because they are migrants and so on, but it is mainly related to the rules for this kind of employment, because family is it is the small company employing the migrants. So the problem is the cost of work for families. So the problem is how to reduce for families the cost of regularly assuming these workers to help them to be really regularized.
What do you mean the cost? Do you mean the
cost? Because you have to pay not only the salary, but you have to pay the salary and then to pay the contribution and a lot of taxes. The fiscal gap between the salary received by the employees and what it is paid by family is high. And so we have to reduce, or at least say that if you hire a woman or a man to care your father or mother living with you, or your children at home in a babysitting situation or something like that, you can we can consider that this part of your family incoming is not subjected to taxes, for instance. So a fiscal way to reduce the cost of having domestic employees for families. So it is mainly a problem of our fiscal situation and the cost of workers for families, not mainly related to the fact that these people are immigrant.
I see. I see. And so many families would prefer to hire these workers informally in order to avoid paying social security contributions, taxes, and so on. And there is a market for that.
Migrant people is in some cases better, because if you formally have a salary for a woman, you could have less access to social benefit for people who don't have a work. So the problem is that in Italy, to increase the number of people working, in particular women, we should say that if you work, if you have a job, my social benefit will remain or increase, not decrease. For instance, in the case of the assegno unico universale, we introduced exactly for this reason the rule that if in the family both the parents are worker, the amount of the assegno is higher. You receive more money because we assume that you have to pay some, for instance, some education services to take care of your children if both parents go to work also in the afternoon after school for children.
Okay, so it's a way also to lead workers to declare themselves, to declare that they have a work. At least the compensation is that their family benefits will be higher.
Yeah,
I see. I see. So the question of the irregular domestic workers is related also to saving on costs for employers.
Mainly related to this point. I think that it is the main point, the main crucial point. Yeah.
And so there has been, there is notoriously a large informal market in Italy, which is one of the biggest in Europe. And so this is the kind of activities that take place in this informal labor market, the black market. Undeclared domestic work, for instance. And Italy has also, you were mentioning earlier the question of regularization ex post of migrants. That is, migrants come, they start looking for jobs informally with employers or sometimes also with families. And after a while, their situation is better established, and with their employers, sometimes they ask for regularization. What is your opinion on the way these regularization programs have been working in Italy? Those who attack those programs would say that they also create an incentive for migrants to come irregularly, because they know that after a couple of years, if things go well, they will be regularized. So what is your opinion on the way those programs have worked?
No, I think that it is not an effective way. For instance, in 2020, when I was at the government, we passed a law to regularize foreign people residing in Italy. And later this has been extended also in the following years. but the result is that you regularize a small part of people who live in Italy and working in Italy, but not in a regular way, so that they do not pay taxes, for instance. So it is not efficient also for the whole economic system. It is really mainly based on the ideological idea that we have to contain irregularities and irregular migration, but the effect is exactly the contrary. So you are incentivizing irregularity in Italy without having all the benefits coming from the regularization of workers in Italy. So I think that we have really to change the paradigm of our structure, because it is not efficient for the global process, but also from the point of view of the administrative task. You have just one click day in which you have to stay there to say, okay, I have a worker to be regularized, but there are many workers that are not included at the end of this process, and they continue to stay in Italy in a regular way. So it is clear that we cannot let me say, include that everyone coming in Italy can stay in Italy. But at the same time, everyone that come in Italy and find a work in Italy, I think that these migrants not only have the right to stay, but it is important for Italy that he stays here in Italy, because now we are in a situation where we have a lot of places in the labor market that will not be, let me say, assigned, because we are not a sufficient number of workers in Italy now. This is our problem, and the projection is worse.
So just to make sure I have understood the issue with the regularization program, at some point I understood you suggested that those regularization programs do not necessarily require immigrants to have a job, or was I confused?
No, if the Decreto Flussi stabilize is related to job, then you can have the possibility to stay in Italy as a refugee, and it is another matter. Concerning the job, the mechanism is not effective, because you say, because there is a small number of people regularized, but the bigger number of people stay in Italy, have black job without paying taxes, without also, let me say, insurance for workers, for instance, for health, security, and so on, but they are staying in Italy. So the problem is that it is the mechanism that has to be changed. This is my political point of view.
So this is the, I'm just really trying to understand the issue. It's just that the Bossi-Fini decree allows to be regularized only a subset of all the irregular migrant workers out there.
There are 2 points. There are some regularization. So, for instance, this year the government stabilized that you have the opportunity to regularize some irregular migrants staying in Italy.
Mm-hmm.
You declare the number, 100 migrants that could be regularized, and there is a click. The other way, that it is the normal way, each year you fix the number of migrants that can arrive in Italy to work. But these people do not arrive in Italy. They are already in Italy. So there is a de facto a regularization of these people.
Okay, the two channels serve the same purpose.
Yeah.
And regarding the first channel, the regularization, the properly regularization channel, this one, what does it says? You have said, for instance, we will allow 20,000 people to be regularized this year. What are the conditions for regularization in that channel?
It depends on the choice of each government, because it is not stated by law as a structural law.
Okay.
So in our case, for instance, in 2020, the main part of the number of people regularized was exactly for domestic labor. And not in agriculture, where there are a lot of migrants working in irregular way.
Okay, and you seem to have your views on this particular question. So, what are your views? What should be done according to you? How should the legislation and its practice be changed?
So I think that now we should not only fix the number of workers, because the labor market is a market. So you cannot a priori, and from the point of view of the government, state how many workers the labor market needs. So if a company want to hire people after training, after choice, we can have a lot of problems. When a person has the job in Italy with some stability, he can ask for stay in Italy. So you are regular if you work in Italy. This is then you have to add also policies for refugees, for integrating people, for migrants coming from, and this is another issue. But the main purpose is that if you work in Italy, you are regular in Italy.
Okay, so this is an alternative to the current system in which there are kind of quotas that are allocated randomly sometimes. So your system will be more automatic, based on
more
the
flexible,
reality.
more automatic, less bureaucracy, and more fitting with the requirements of companies.
Yeah. Okay. So yes, that's interesting. I think that behind these difficulties, there is an attempt by some Italian policymakers to try to control and slow down the process of immigration, with sometimes unintended consequences and some confusion on the grounds for both the migrants and their employers. So it was a very rich conversation.
You need some data for your research, or some other information, you can ask, and I can send you also some report. We have a lot of interesting data concerning the presence of migrants, the percentage of our GDP, for instance, depending on migrants' work and so on. So if you need something, please ask me, and if I can help you, it would be a pleasure to do.
Okay, so thank you very much, Mrs. Bonetti. It was a very rich conversation.